We're moving on. It's another first timer, and it is David Simpson.
Hello, hi.
Hi, David. Do you want to fire away?
Yep. My father died first, just days after his 60th birthday. My mother made it to 96, so she got 40 years to go on acting like a spoilt child. No longer cheese to his chalk, free to be the great drama queen. And yet she surprised me when she died. My father was a very logical, rational man, believing in manners, correct behavior, and action. Sit up straight, he'd bark at mealtimes. Though thinking back now, it's odd that his favorite piece of music was Rachmaninoff's Second Piano Concerto, an orgy of romanticism and emotion. His temperament was much more Bach sonatas, measured, balanced, of the mind. My mother's menopause pushed him to the limit. Her histrionics hit new heights. "All you want is a slave," she screamed as platefuls of Sunday roast were flung onto the dining room table. Having shocked us into silence, she charged up the stairs, clutching a bottle of sleeping pills and the rest of the red wine, retreating to my brother's bedroom. I ran out of the house, unable to take this precipitous descent into chaos. As I turned out of our gate, I heard a bedroom window open. "Don't worry, darling, it's nothing to do with you," declaimed my mother to the neighborhood. I quickened my steps till I was running into the woods at the back of our estate. Shame dripped into me like raindrops off the branches. Later, she descended the staircase. In a fashion I swear I could hear, "I'm ready for my close-up now, Mr. DeMille." Flinging open the lounge door, she advanced on my father sitting in his armchair. She started to remonstrate at him about the unfairness of their domestic workloads. My father, slowly and with pointed deliberation, raised his Daily Telegraph till he could no longer see her. "I am not talking to you until you can talk rationally." It was such a completely unrealistic demand to make of my mother. She was a woman who was ruled by her emotions. Opera, theatre, poetry, bashing the piano through some piece of Brahms. And at all times, she demanded attention. As the popular Miss Piggy said on the front of a greetings card of the time, "Attention, attention," she angrily shouted from the balcony overlooking a crowd of people. When you opened the card, the crowd was shown looking adoringly up at her, puffed up, preening like a peacock. I love attention. My mother took this to extremes at my father's funeral. I hadn't had the easiest relationship with him. I was a rebellious teenager in the late 60s. He was strict, kind of cold, distant. God love him, trying to figure out what to do with me. "You're walking with me," ordered my mother, as both my brothers had their wives with them. I walked her down the aisle of the Bristol crematorium and sat with her on the front pew. I wasn't feeling much, pretty numb. As the curtains parted, I watched my father's coffin inch its way away from me. Suddenly I realized I was losing him forever. I started to cry. A sharp elbow landed in my ribs, worthy of a heavyweight boxer. "Stop crying. You're supposed to be supporting me." I stopped. But you need to know that from the hour and the day that my father died prematurely from throat cancer, my mother had not shown any grief at all. She never mentioned him. Before the ashes were cold, she started to live the life of Riley, spending her good widow's pension and my grandfather's carefully garnered savings. She set herself the goal to visit all the Roman ruins in the world, and she almost did. 40 years later, she died of old age and dementia in an old people's home that had genuinely enjoyed her histrionics. The cook said to me she would hear my mother wailing over some slight or unforgivable lack of attention. "Oh," said the cook, "there goes Margaret. Good to hear she's still with us." When I went to see her in the chapel of rest, I burst out wailing at the top of my voice. As soon as I started, my wife Tony rushed out of the room. Later she explained to me, "You went full Margaret." My brother Hugh was crying quietly, the chorus to my Greek tragedy. Leaving the room, he left me alone with my mother. I let go of her cold, dead hand and started to leave. Realizing this was my last time with her, I turned back and started to wail again. Only this time, I swear, I saw her two top fingers move as if she was shooing me out of the room. The crying stopped immediately. Oh, maybe I should go. I left the room and sheepishly went out to reception, painfully aware that everyone in the building would have heard my anguish. But she was to give me an even greater surprise at the memorial service. I was seated a few rows back from the front with a 90-year-old neighbor of ours from childhood. I think Karen, my twin brother's wife, was speaking. A thought struck me as I looked at my mother's picture on the front of the order of service. Someone had told me that the soul stays around for 4 days after their death. I thought I'd chance trying to contact my mother. As soon as I had that impulse, I heard her voice. "You're not broken." I was stunned. It was such a positive thing for her to say, and for once not about her. In the days and weeks that followed, I kept returning to the idea that I'm not broken, the clear implication being that I'm whole. It was revelatory. It explains so many of my insecurities, my neediness. From the grave, or was it from the crematorium fires, she had given me a healing message. Until now, I haven't told people about her surprise parting gift. And had my father still been alive, I definitely wouldn't have told him. I can hear him now. "David, if you think you saw your mother's fingers move, or worse still, heard her talking to you, you, my son, are taking leave of your senses."